What's up YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back, and today we'll be doing a $175 customer wrapped coin roll hunt. These coins came from my local Wells Fargo. We've got 10 rolls of quarters, 10 rolls of dimes, 10 rolls of nickels, and 10 rolls of pennies. And we'll be going through these coins looking for anything old, interesting, mint varieties and errors, silver, proofs, you name it, we'll be looking for it. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into these coins. So before we get started, I did want to give a little shout out to one of my daughter's friends, James, who is a little 13-year-old budding coin collector. He found out recently that I have this channel and I coin roll hunt, and he had all kinds of questions for me that I usually get, in the comments down below about how did I get into this? Where do I get these coins? Do I get them from a special place? So on and so forth. And James, these came from the bank. Everything you see here came from the bank. So I went in with money. I asked for 10 rolls of each. And the coins we're going to hunt through are the ones that we're going to see on this video today. If you've got a son or a nephew or something and you want to get them into the hobby, it's the easiest thing in the world. You just need a few rolls of coins. You need some sort of search list like the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book, where you can go through and see all the neat and interesting coins that are out there that have some value above face and a little bit of time on your hands. And it can be a ton of fun. And I'm so happy to hear that James has gotten into the hobby. And with that, let's go ahead and get into these pennies. So I do like to open a few rolls on camera. I won't open all of them and go through them all live, but I like to do that just so you can see I'm just dumping these out and going through them. And it's always neat if I get one open and we do find some cool stuff at that moment. And I do see a little bit of copper in here, but these coins are disgusting. So that's something else you're going to get used to if you get into coin roll hunting. You're going to find some pretty nasty and gross coins. Now that's a 1971. That's made of copper. I do hang on to all my copper pennies on the channel. Copper's worth about 2.8 times face value right now. So any copper penny before 1982 is worth almost 3 cents. So worth hanging on to. And recently the Mint has announced that they're going to stop making pennies after 2026, I think. Or in 2026, they're going to make pennies until they run out of planchets. So the penny could end up becoming very, very rare here in the next few years. So everything I put over here, these are all copper coins. So far, all of them are in the 70s. There's a few that have things like DDOs, double die obverses, and double die reverses, which I will go back through and look for off camera. And if we happen to find something, I'll be sure to bring you in and show it to you. But so far, that one I couldn't even see. It's a 2001. The rest of these are really kind of gross looking. I can't even read the date. 1985. We've got one more copper guy right here, I think. 1965 it looks like. So in that roll we ended up with 7 copper coins. Looks like we have a bunch of old and dirty zinc. Nothing too interesting. But I'll go back through these. If I find something that might be in the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book, I'll bring you in. We'll take a look at it under the scope, and I'll tell you a value on it. So I didn't actually find anything yet, but I did want to bring you in since I talked about the Strike It Rich book. And if you are new to coin roll hunting, most pennies, the errors you're going to look for are going to be things that you can find on the 1972, which we did have in our first roll there. And in the Strike It Rich book, I think that's the first one, the 72. Just to go through all the pages here really quick, there's a lot of double die obverses, and to give you an idea of value on some of these things, if you can find these really strong examples of the double die in circulated condition, it's $125 to $175, right? And I do love this book because it shows you what you are looking for, right? So the 72 has a bunch of stuff. There's a more minor double die, so you can see it's just more widening of the letters. Here's another version of that double die that's worth less. So if you only find it in specific words and not all of them, it can be worth a little bit less. Here's another one. There's a couple of telltale markers on this one, if you happen to find it, to know that this is the one that's worth $200 to $500. So typically when you look at your copper pennies, you're going to be looking for this type of doubling, right? That's why I'm showing you this more than anything. So double D, double O, double G's, right? And the 72 has a ton of them. And this is the one that I think most people end up finding if they find anything. And it's just that slight doubling on the 2 in 1972. The 72D has it as well. So look at all your 72s, Philly or Denver, and the 72S, you can find that double die. So anyway, on ours, if you take a quick look, you can see we've got none of that strong doubling. So what we have here is worth a penny. Now, you see some weirdness in this. None of that's double die as far as I know. A lot of that's just post-mint damage. Like you can see that E's just been shifted down. Nothing here in the lettering. In God we trust. So we just have a 1972 penny here. So one of the things I like to do, especially over pennies and dimes, is if you have some rare earth magnets, it's to rub those over the coins before you open the rolls. Because that'll help you find if you might have a few foreigns in there. So this could be anything from a Canadian penny to it could be a misstuffed Canadian dime. It could be some Bahamian coins. There's a lot of coins out there that are magnetic. None of the U.S. currency is, so I'm going to guess we've got something from Canada. This is how I like to find it. And there it is. We've got ourselves a 2008 Canadian penny. Now this is mainly zinc. There is no copper. If there is, there's very, very little copper in there. I don't hang on to these. Usually these I either hang on to in a cup or I throw them back in a penny roll and let someone else find them. So it's taken us all the way to roll number 9 to find us a wheat penny. It's definitely seen better days. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of street damage on it. Doesn't look like it's an oldie, so maybe that's okay. We got ourselves a 1951D that is, well, it's a keeper because it's wheaty and it's copper, but it's not going in any collections anytime soon. Well, we're into roll number 10, and we've got our next foreign, and this time it is a 98% copper foreign. It is a 1964 Canadian penny. Well, that's going to wrap us up for the pennies. It wasn't a great hunt, but it was only 10 rolls. And 10 rolls, finding one wheatie is really not too bad these days, considering the average box only produces, for me, anywhere from about 4 to 8. So finding 1 in 10 is not so bad. Of course, we will be hanging on to the 98% copper 64 Canadian penny. I may pitch back the zinc, and of course, we did come across the 2009 early childhood commemorative, and I have lots and lots of those in really good shape. As for copper, these are stacks of 10, so we got 50, 61 copper pennies. If I add the wheatie and our Canadian to that and throw it into coin apps, for the effectively 63 cents, it's worth $1.79 in copper. So not a bad little copper haul for just 10 rolls of pennies. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in to the nickels. All right, well, let's get one of these nickel rolls open for you on camera. Now, I purposefully picked this roll because it had the oldest looking ender. That doesn't mean that it's going to be terribly old. Now, in our nickels, we do keep anything that's 1959 and older, just simply because the mintages were much lower back then. And they're not considered modern nickels. Of course, we will also be looking for our San Francisco proofs. I do have an album that I'm trying to fill out. And of course, the main things we want to find are our Buffaloes, our V-nickels, and our War nickels, which were 1942 to 1945. And War nickels kind of have this off color like that. So I don't know if it's going to be a War nickel, but let's check it out. It is not. It's just a really toned 2006. So false alarm there. Let's spread these out and go through them really quick and see if we have any oldies in here. If we do, let's take a look at the date. So, and an oldie again will be 59 and older. 64. 81. That looks kind of old. It's just a 1960. We missed it by a year. Lots of 64s. 77 and nothing. So nothing terribly old in here. There's a couple in here that I know have some DDOs and DDRs. I'll go back through. I'll have a look, and if we find something, I'll bring you in. So I'm bringing you in all the way up here on roll number 6 for a coin that I've already looked at under the scope. It's a coin I've been looking for a long time, and I really want it to be it, but I don't think it is. So the 2004 Philadelphia piece metal has a double die obverse that is really apparent in the In God We Trust and Liberty and 2004. 2004 is the easiest place to see it. I'll show it to you in the Strike It Rich book here in just a second. Actually, let's just do that now. I've already got it pulled out here. $15 to $25 in circulated condition. You can see we've got very widened or oblong lettering, and usually you're looking for some split serifs. That's usually your telltale sign for a double die. You can actually see that we've just got 2 zeros kind of on top of each other. Split serifs there in the 2. That's really what we're looking for. And when I first put this under the scope, I'll show you why I originally got excited. When you look at Liberty, you could clearly see we've got like what looks like a B on top of a B and an R on top of an R. But my first inclination was to say that that was some sort of machine doubling, or something from all the grease in this die caused some of this spreading. And when I got over here to the zeros in 2004, you can see we've got what appears to be some doubling here and here as well. But the 4 is so far down in the grease, we can't tell if there's any split serifs on there. So while I really want this to be the double die obverse of the 2004 Philly, I think we've got a grease-filled die, and I think we had a little bit of strike doubling as that die slipped around during the strike. So if you agree with me, let me know in the comments down below. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments down below. But this is a coin I'll pull aside for a little while, but I wish it was what I wanted it to be. Unfortunately, I just think it's a little bit of a grease die. Well, I'll be honest, this is probably the first time I've been through 10 customer wrap nickels and not found at least one pre-1960 nickel. Now, I had a bunch of 1960 exactly, nothing 1959 and earlier. And of course, we did have the one 2004 that I brought you in for, which I'll hang on to for now, but I don't think it's anything special. Again, let me know in the comments down below. Now, our dimes, because we don't really hunt those, I'm going to go ahead and just open all these live on camera. We're going to hunt these for silver, which means all we're really going to do is look at the edges of these coins. And if we have a good solid gray edge, it means we've got some silver in there. If we don't, then it means we don't. And we've got some colored coins. That might actually be silver right there in roll number 1. I'll try to zoom in on that. Looks like we've got some painted stuff, but right here, let's take a look. I think we've got a mint mark on the back, but I'm pretty sure this is silver from the color. And we do have ourselves a 1964 silver dime. Just throwing that under the scope real quick. Yeah, it is. It's a 1964 Denver. There is a mint mark kind of hiding under all the grime there. So as disappointing as those nickels were, we find silver in the very first customer wrapped roll of dimes. So let's just spread these out. We've got some old and ugly ones in here for sure. All right. But hopefully you saw, and I'll put this up closer to the camera, how easy it is to spot silver dimes in a pack of dimes, especially for you new coin roll hunters. If I put that up real close, you can see that really solid gray. There's no like copper line in there. There's no dark line in there, because it's 90% silver. So it's going to read silver pretty much all the way around. So that's how you can find that. It's really easy. It is worth, if it's your first time going much slower than I'm going to go. Especially that I'm probably going to end up going in fast forward if we don't find anything. Now, I haven't priced silver dimes in a little while, but typically they are a little over $2 a pop. That right now, with where spot is, they're probably closer to like $2.40 or $2.50 a piece. I'll put the current spot price on the screen just so you can see it. Now, that does dissuade The fact that there's so little silver price in dimes dissuades a lot of coin roll hunters from looking at these. There's not a lot of mint errors and varieties. You can look for proofs. There is the 1996W. There's the 2004. I think it's the Denver double ear. It might be the Philly. I always have to look that up. But there's just not much to find in dimes. So most coin roll hunters that I know that have already filled out albums really just silver hunt these days. And it's always nice when you're hunting dimes if you can find an old Barber or a old Mercury dime. Those are always great to find. And I also like to kind of spin them because sometimes they read a little differently in the light as you go all the way around. So you may see me do that. So with that, I'll be quiet and we'll just we'll fast forward if we don't happen to come across anything else. All right, well, that's going to do it for our dimes. I'm not going to say I'm disappointed because we did find a little bit of silver in that one. Little 1964 Denver. So that makes the dimes definitely a success, and of course my favorite of the hunt so far. Okay, so all we have left here to hunt is the quarters, and I saved them for last because outside of pennies, they have the most to find, and I like them because they're a little bit bigger coin. And there's tons of little new die chips and die cracks and things like that in the newer coins. So they are easier to make some finds on. Now I say that, and if these are anything like the nickels, we aren't going to find much. But we're going to go through them each roll and see what we come up with. And as I find the little die chips, I'll be sure to bring in. But I wanted to get 2 or 3 of these open in front of you guys just to see if we get lucky and find a little silver. I was honestly shocked to find that one in the dimes, so I'll be shocked if we find one here too. All right, let's do one more and then I will go off camera. And like I said, I'll pull you in as I find things. So let's see, any silver in there? So nothing in there either. And the quarters would look just like the dimes. We'd have that big solid silver edge. It'd be really easy to see. All right, well, I will bring in as soon as we find something interesting. So we're getting through that third roll that we opened at the beginning of our quarter hunt here, and I have come across a really, really good example of the snow on the roof, and it's probably one of the best examples I have ever found. Now, the snow on the roof is where you get a die chip, so a lot of times it's just little tiny ones that line the roof of this little house here in the 2015 homestead. But as you can see here, without any zoom in at all, we have a ton of gigantic die chips through there, and it even comes down on the lower window here. So I'll zoom in here, and then we'll take you over to the scope to get a closer look at this. But all of that metal is not supposed to be up there, and it really does kind of look like snow on the roof. And this little die chip above the window as well is just a little bit more snow for our little house there. Let's have a look here on the scope, just so you can get a look at what that's supposed to look like. This is where the roof is supposed to look like on both sides, right? Just a stair-stepped, like shingled roof. But we've got all this extra metal. So I'm not going to say this is a really high value error, but if I can find some eBay comps, I'll throw them up during the quarter wrap up. The other thing we always want to check on the homestead is DDRs here in the window. You can see we've got a little bit of something in here, but the typical DDRs look like additional window panes in there, and the one you want to really look out for is the extra pump handle, where we actually have a second pump handle coming up there. And then the last thing we look for is the leaky bucket where we get big die chips down here. So at the end of the day, this is a fantastic snow on the roof and a fun little coin to find. So same roll, just maybe 5 or 6 quarters later, we've come across another little die chip you have to keep an eye out for. This is on the 2008 Arizona, and there's a couple of die chips on here to look for. The main one we all look for, though, is it's called the extra cactus, and it's where we get an extra little cactus down here over top of the engraver's initials. This should be a nice smooth arch there. Here you can see we have a little metal left behind, and that's not supposed to be there. The other thing we look for, at least I look for, is there's usually a big die chip right around in here. So the extra cactus error is right there. So we're getting through rolls 8, 9, and 10 of our quarter hunt, and I've come across the next little error that I thought I would show you as we go through this. And you can see it under this magnification, but I'll put it under the scope so you'll see it a little bit better. I believe this one's caused by a struck through grease error, but it's the Inwe Rust Philadelphia error from the 2005 Kansas. And you can see that the T is kind of missing, and in this particular quarter, the I is kind of missing as well. The really valuable versions of this, the I and the T, would be completely missing, but you can see here we have a huge lack of definition around the T and the I, where all the rest of the lettering is in really, really good shape. So they do call this one the Inwe Rust, but I've gotten it where you couldn't see the I, the G, the O. It just depends on how much grease was in that die when they struck it. At least that's what I believe caused this error. So if it's not in your search list, make sure it is. And if I can find some comps for this on eBay, I'll make sure to put them on the screen. So that's going to wrap up our quarters and our multi-denominational hunt. I want to really quickly go through what we pulled. Over here you see a couple of 2009s that we always hang on to our 2009s and 2010s at a minimum. This Duke Ellington, I've mentioned this in lots of my other videos, but always check for that DDR that's going to be down in the keys. That one's really, really valuable, and it's still on my bucket list to find. I did get one bicentennial quarter that was Denver, and we're always going to look out for that double die obverse. Again, also on my bucket list. Didn't find it this time, so that'll go back to the mint. I'll hang on to these. Now, the couple of varieties that we found, or errors, if you will, that have a little bit of value. Let's go through them. We have the 2008 Arizona. It's the extra cactus down here over the engraver's initials. This is going to fetch anywhere from $1 to about $3 on eBay. These are fairly easy to find. I have probably found 100 of these. I don't hang on to all of them, but the nicer ones I do are Inwe Rust 2005 Kansas. Looking on eBay at recent sales for coins kind of like this one, they could be anywhere from $3 to $5 to about $8 a piece to the right buyer. And of course, the Homestead, the 2015 Homestead with all that snow up there on the roof. And if this looks a little shinier to you than when I first pulled it from the roll, that's because I dropped it in just a little easiest for about 10 seconds and then let it air dry. And it gave it a nice little shine. It doesn't take any value away from the quarter because it is circulated. But on eBay, one with a very, very similar roof pattern to this one went for $20. So that is a real win in the quarters. Now, I'm not going to go back through the other denominations of what we found other than the dimes, because we did find a 1964 Denver dime, which anytime we have a coin roll hunt and we come away with some silver, it is definitely a win in my book. Again, this quarter is worth way more than this dime in resale. So while I love my silver, I love finding stuff like this a little bit more. For a quick update for our silver chest, it is really, really, really sad this year. By now, this point last year, this thing was already half full, I would say. We had a couple of big scores early in the year, and this year the silver's just been really, really tough to come by. So that's the state of our silver chest. And that's going to wrap us up for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you do, or if you did, drop one down below, click that like button, leave me a comment, and share it with friends if you know that they like coin roll hunts or maybe watching some of the other great channels out there. If you're new to the channel and you do like this one, make sure you do click that subscribe button and click that little bell and select all so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. Special shout out to my channel members. Thank you guys for supporting the channel each and every month. I really, really appreciate it. And with that, we're going to have to head on back to the bank and see if we can find some more coins to hunt. I do have my weekly $50 to get through. And then I'll make a few rounds this week. And if I can find anything interesting to hunt, I will. And you'll be the first to see it. So with that, take care. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.